Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for gathering today at Hillside Memorial Park to remember and honor the life of Evelyn Hoffman. As the service is about to begin, we ask that you please take a moment to turn off or silence your phones. Officiating Evelyn's service is Rabbi Evelyn Hoffman.
No one sitting over there. That's okay. Well, okay. That's all right. I've never seen that.
They didn't have the small group, so they bumped us up.
They bumped.
We charged like the car rental places.
Good. Okay. Well, it's never happened to everybody at once. Okay. Anyway, it does change things. To the living, death is always a wound. And whether death comes after a lengthy illness or a sudden accident, death is always a wound. But death is part of life, just like night is part of day, just like a fallen leaf belongs to a tree. Death is part of life. There's no added merit if our years are long, but only if they're good. And as you think about Evelyn's life, may you think about all that was good, all that was kind, all that was energetic, all that was loving. As Jews, we always have lots of questions. And if you're a younger Jew, you find the answers on a Yahoo or a Google search or a WebMD. And we just pick up our tablets and do it. Well, the tablets that Moses gave us, you couldn't ask any questions. They were 10 statements. And so the Jews still had questions, and they had to find an answer. And the answer was, we lift our eyes into the hills. From where does help come when life is really difficult? And the answer was, it comes from that power, that source that's made both the heaven and the earth, because that power does neither sleep nor slumber. May it be a source of power for us. The other question they asked was, Ma adam v'tei dehu beninosh v'tashvehu. God, what are we that you even care about us? Our days are like shadows. In the morning of our lives, we flourish and grow up. In the evening of our life, we are cut down and wither. So what do our lives mean anyway? And the answer was that we are all challenged to be people who make the world a better place. And whether you do it as someone of the Jewish faith, or someone of the Christian faith or Islamic faith, or you're a Buddhist or you're a Zoroastrianist, you can make the world a better place. And that's the purpose of all the religions. Although they are all different, they all have the same purpose, to have us live in such a way that we make the world a better place. And so, in a time and an age when there is division over languages, and division over racial biases, and division over religions, our bottom line is live in fidelity with those principles that make the world a better place. Ecclesiastes, was very poetic, what he wrote. And as Jeffrey would remember, there was a song by the Byrds. Right, from now, of course, they changed the lyrics a little bit. Yeah, they did. But it's okay. It's okay. When I was growing up in the 60s in San Francisco, we didn't know they had changed them, but I found out. And, Ecclesiastes said that life isn't always going to be wonderful. Good times don't last long enough. Miserable times don't last forever either. But there are times and seasons for everything that we're about to do. There's a time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to tear down, and a time to build up. But for you and Marlene, it's a time for some tears, but it's also a time to be grateful for her life, for the quality of her life, for the length of her days, for the depths of her relationship. That's what's really important. And for the few people who get to live, 97 years, this is a large crowd. Some of them would have been sitting over there, but again, you're all over here, so we'll take you wherever you're at. We'll take you. And those seats are actually cheaper. You get a refund. You get 30 cents a person for everyone who's over there. But anyway, and so Ecclesiastes said life wasn't always going to be wonderful. And I do think that it's up to us to make life wonderful and how we see things, and how today is a real good day for the cactus in our gardens. It's a good day, for sunbathing, a good day for going to the beach, and to make the best of it. And today is a day to think about her life, to think about what was important to her, and that, all of you, carry on part of her legacy. And hopefully we learn from those people who have died. And we don't make a big deal out of death, because it happens to goldfish, it happens to flowers, it happens to, to great works of art as well too. They're in fashion, then they're not in fashion. Rabbi Alvin Fine, who was my rabbi in San Francisco growing up, tried to explain what life was. And he did it, I think, very succinctly and very beautifully. And it was written in French originally. But I don't know that you would know the French if I were to do it, but I would butcher the language. But he said, birth is a beginning, but life, it's a journey. It's a going, it's a growing from stage to stage. We go from childhood to maturity. We go from youth to age. We go from innocence to awareness. We go from ignorance to knowing. We go from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength, or strength to weakness. From health to sickness, and God willing, back to health again. We go from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, and ultimately from fear to faith. Until looking forward or backward, we find that victory in life lies not with possessions or a high place in life, but in having lived life as a sacred journey. Birth was Evelyn's beginning. Life was her journey from birth to life everlasting in the hearts of the people she loved. I'm going to have some of you speak about Evelyn's life a little bit. And I encourage you that at the reception at Evelyn's residence that you continue to share even more. And it's really important that you do cross-generational remembrances, because younger people have a certain picture of the life they spent with her and the interactions. And some of you have had interactions with her, well, as kids. You knew your mom all your life. And some of your stories are a little bit different, but it's important to sort of revisit them again and take a moment not to nominate her for sainthood, but be grateful for how she lived. So I'm going to first call upon Nancy Sullivan to share some thoughts with us.
Hi. Oh gosh, I'm wearing pink because that's Evelyn to me. I know she would approve. So I've been a friend of Marlene for 40 years, and I met Evelyn and Charlie at the kitchen table in their house. And if you were ever lucky enough to be at the kitchen table, I get to be the first person who talks about food. I'm so lucky. And if you'd always end up at the kitchen table in the Hoffman home. And if food is love, then Evelyn's life, Evelyn's kitchen was a love fest. It was Woodstock. There would be chicken in piles, lamb, chicken soup. There was the legendary brisket that everyone loved, and all of the sides. And my favorite thing was I would always leave with a goodie bag of chocolate chip cookies and challah. When I got there and there was fresh challah, this Irish Catholic girl's heart would flip over. And Evelyn knew that I would burst into it in the car, so she would always pack me extra so that I had some for the next day. Now, have you ever seen a tiny lady in her 90s whip together a brisket dinner for 8, maybe 10 people, dressed perfectly from head to toe with a belt matching shoes, pearls, and a flawless hairdo. Well, if you have been in Evelyn's house, you'd seen that. And, Evelyn really made me laugh. And I think she made everyone laugh. She was such a dynamo. And she made me laugh intentionally, but I think my favorite laughs were the unintentional ones. And she had such great stories, and she would love to tell them, and she had such a joy. And the thing that I always loved was I always sensed there was a lot of embellishment going on. You kind of, especially you'd hear him, Evelyn for a while, you'd hear him again and again, and there was always a twinkle in the eye, and Marlene would kind of usually look at me and, I've never heard that before. I'm like, here we go. But I have a story about a brisket that I think it might be okay to recount. I was there one time when Evelyn was packing for a trip to go back to Chicago with Marlene and see all the relatives. And she had this suitcase that was as big as she was. And there were all kinds of winter clothes, and there was a full box of tissues, twice the size of this. And I said, Evelyn, why are you bringing so many tissues? She said, well, those are the ones I like. I said, okay. There was also a giant divot in the middle of the suitcase, kind of a round shape. And Marlene said, Mom, what's that? And we said, yeah, what's that? She goes, well, that's for the brisket. We're like, your brisket is going to Chicago in your suitcase? She's like, it's in the freezer. And I started laughing, and Marlene said, Mom, you're going to the most Jewish neighborhood in Chicago. I think you can find a brisket. And she goes, well, I can find a 5-pounder. I can find a 7-pounder, but this is a 6-pounder, and this is what I like. Yep. So, Evelyn's small stature could barely contain the dynamo she was. The strength of spirit and the size of her heart was so huge. She was really caring and understanding and open-minded toward not only people that she knew, but she would give everybody benefit of the doubt. She was amazingly accepting, especially for someone of her generation. And she was, most of all, really loving, just so loving. And everyone always loves to say that someone was a bright light, but that is true here. The woman was a pistol. She was a bright light. She was dynamic, and anyone who crossed her path would remember that. And what I remember is that she always told me I was one of her adopted daughters, and she was so proud of me. And the way that I felt when she would say that, I don't know if I'll ever feel that again, but I will certainly never forget it.
I'd like to ask for Cameron Mannheim to please share with us.
The rabbi seems to be very interested in why we are all sitting on this side. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's because we're all lefties. And I don't mean that by my hand, I mean it by our politics. Well, I can see there's going to be some themes today. I wish I could tell you the exact moment I met Evelyn. It was circa 1981 when I moved to Santa Cruz, California, and I fell in love with this tiny little theater group called Company for Dinner. Marlene was part of that theater company, and I saw her in this fantastical musical called Working, and I thought, oh, I have just found heaven. And then I found out that she was going to be my dance teacher at Cabrillo College, and I was just enamored and in love with her. I somehow wiggled my way into being a part of that theater, and I spent my whole college years devoted to Company for Dinner. And I did so many productions with them. My college, the University of Santa Cruz, said they weren't going to let me graduate because I didn't do any shows there. And I'm like, well, aren't you preparing me to be doing shows in the real world? Because that's what I'm doing. And I had to go up against an arbitration board and fight for my degree. It was during all of those productions that I met Evelyn. She and Charlie would drive up from LA and come to our shows. And I remember they would take us to, I can't even remember, I was talking to Greg about this earlier, if it was Denny's or Bob's Big Boy, but after every show, they would take us out and treat us to a real meal. Evelyn would tell you that she always said she knew I was going to make it. So when I did make it, she made it very clear that I had only her to thank. As the years went on, Marlene and I became very close friends, and we found ourselves in New York and then Los Angeles, and I'm sure one of the reasons that we stayed so close and our friendship was so strong was because of Evelyn. Through the years, Evelyn made curtains for my family. She came to see every one of my plays. She saw every one of my television shows, and she happily told me exactly what she thought of them. I always admired her honesty. But most importantly, she included me in her Sunday night dinners with her famous brisket and her challah. 18 years ago, my son was born, and she proceeded to adopt him as well. He also took the pressure off of Marlene and Jeff because now she had her favorite grandson all in one, so that was good. I have pictures of Milo sitting, my tiny little Milo, sitting in Evelyn's lap. And just last year, I have another picture of tiny little Evelyn sitting in my big boy's lap. She would come to all of his middle school shows, and she would say, "That kid is going to make it." So when he did make it, you only have Evelyn to thank. I could never get him to do this at my house, but when we went for Sunday dinner, Evelyn always had the best salad with the best Italian dressing and the best meat and potatoes. And I know that dressing was just bought off the shelf at Ralph's, but somehow, and I mean this sincerely, it just tasted better at her house. It was so comical when Milo and I showed up, 5'10", 6'3". We literally felt like bowls in a china shop. Because for those of you who had the privilege of eating at Evelyn's, it's basically like eating in a miniature dollhouse. The only thing that's real are the wrapped candies and the glass dishes. But we weren't the only people that Evelyn adopted. When my friend Michelle was looking for an office in town, Evelyn opened up her guest house, and they started a remarkable friendship these past 14 years. It was beautiful to see their unconventional bond, and it made me love my friend Michelle all the more for being so devoted to her. Evelyn loved her neighbors, and she loved their children. She talked about them all the time. She loved her families, her nephews, her nieces, her great nieces, and she shared the good news about them whenever we came to visit. And she loved Nieves. She loved her. And believe me, if I could write, there is an Academy Award-winning movie right there. Nieves, you've been with her thick and thin. It was such a special friendship, and it was extraordinary to behold. Even her caretakers, Lulu, Myrna, Andy, they're here because they loved her. Everyone did. It was undeniable. Evelyn was the quintessential Jewish mother. Her love for Marlene and Jeff was fierce. Her pride was palpable. She loved to cavil and shep nachas about her two children. And we heard stories of Jeff in Paris and, of course, all of Marlene's new television adventures. And you know, you only have Evelyn to thank. But one of the things that separated her from other Jewish mothers that I know is that she wasn't judgmental. She had opinions, don't get me wrong, but she was really accepting of everyone just as they were. And that was a truly amazing and gracious trait. Evelyn loved your friends, Marlene, Nancy, Eileen, Greg, Jennifer, all of them. She cared about their well-beings, and she delighted in their accomplishments. There was always life and love in Evelyn's home, filled with amazing culinary smells and hard candies and wonderful conversation. I admired her in so many ways. Her not-so-subtle suggestions, her been-around-the-block life lessons, her devotion to a good hairdo and a good manicure, her excellent choice of the best cut of brisket from Trader Joe's, her political rants, her dirty jokes. She was even cursing, just last week. Her friendships, her ability to be such a bright light and surround herself with interesting people, both young and old. And finally, her ability to make everyone feel like family, and that the dinner party just would not be as good without you there. May we all be so lucky to love so heartily, care so deeply, live life so fully, and to be missed by so many. Thank you.
I'd like to call upon Judy Katz-Pasternak.
Can you see me? So I was asked to speak for the family a bit, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to recognize my relationship with Evelyn and to talk about how I perceived her in our family. So Evelyn Hoffman was Kaplan first. That was her maiden name. There were 8 Kaplan children. 6 survived to adulthood. These were my aunts and my mother. So that was Lillian, Ruth, Florence, Evelyn, Beatrice, who was Evelyn's twin, and Dorothy, my mother. These were my beloved aunts and my mother. How lucky am I? I had the privilege, the honor, and the fortune to have known all of these strong women. And let me tell you, Kaplan women are tough. We're strong. But in particular, I had the fortune of knowing Evie the longest, other than my mom, of course. She was not just an aunt to me, she was a second mother. We used to joke that I was switched at birth, that, Jeff, I'm sorry, but that you were my mom's son, and she didn't want a son, so we switched. But she was, in many ways, my mom, as much as she was my aunt. Spiritually, she was not just my aunt, but I kind of feel like she was my soul twin. And I know that sounds kind of hokey and new agey, but I really feel that we often walked similar paths. She was my cheerleader, she was my advisor. There were so many things in my life that I wouldn't have chosen if Evelyn hadn't said, I've been through this and I know what you need to do. She was my cheerleader, she was my fan, and she was one of the greatest loves of my life. Like I said, the Kaplan women are really strong, they're really independent. And she was an example of courage, bravery, humor. She had everything. She had everything. And we all have benefited from that. She was also one of my moral compasses in many ways. And I became a nurse, and one of the reasons I became a nurse was because of Evelyn and the path she led me down. So part of my role in nursing is to train first responders to reverse overdoses with Narcan. We have saved over 100 lives. The one that stands out the most to me was a woman who was 6 months pregnant, and that woman and that baby survived. And I remember thinking the day I got that news from the police officer, this one's on you, Evelyn, because I wouldn't be here if not for you. So you know she loved to cook and bake. The theme is there. I have to go for it because it's the theme. So I didn't go to nursing school until I was 50. I graduated, and I had this little graduation party, and Evie said, don't get any desserts. I'm going to do the sweet table. So she arrives in Chicago with a suitcase this big full of baked goods, all Evelyn-style baked goods. And to this day, my friends go, how's your aunt with the giant suitcase of chocolate chip cookies? And can I get some more of those? So she definitely loved to bake. I mean, we all know it, right? I don't have a brisket story, but I can tell you my son Brian, who was another one of her honorary grandsons, definitely was in love with her brisket as much as he was in love with her. In the last few years here, I have had the luck, the privilege, and the honor of assisting in her care and the coordination of her health care. Supporting people who were doing such a wonderful job, and just being another support for Marlene, for Michelle, for Jeff, for everybody who was helping her, for Navis, who was definitely there to help. She told me, Evie, one day, and it's so meaningful to me to carry with us, that when I was in her house and I was sleeping on her couch, And by the way, when you go to her house later, don't sit on the couch, it's my bed. But when I was sleeping on her couch, that she felt the safest and most comfortable she felt in those times of her life, at this time of her life. She just liked me to be there. I didn't have to do anything special. She was just happy I was there on the couch. She said she slept better when she knew I was sleeping down the road. I didn't sleep better because every time I heard a sound, I was like, I gotta go see what's going on with her. But I want to speak about and for my mom for a moment as well, who unfortunately could not make this trip. She just can't travel at this point in her life. She's going to be 95 in a couple of weeks. When my mom was 13, she and her sisters lost their mother. And that was a tough time. Now, Evelyn was only 3 years older than my mom, but she took on the role of mother to my mother. My mom thinks of her as, Evie was my mom. She was my sister and she was my mom. She said the only thing I was able to give back to Evie was the ability to teach her how to drive. So, but other than that, she was the mother. They spoke every single day these last few years, mostly swearing in Yiddish. So if you want to know what they said and what their last words to each other were, you have to see me later because it's highly inappropriate to explain it now. Okay, but you're going to learn some good stuff if you hit me up later. That was their fun. That was their connection. They were able to reminisce. They had each other. And of course, my mom is feeling a great loss right now. But I'm not here to say goodbye to Evelyn, but just to say I love you, and I can't wait to see you again. Love is not finite. It doesn't end. There's no such thing. So I continue to love you, Evelyn, and I feel you around me. I feel your love, and I feel all the gifts you've given to me and the people who loved her as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. David?
Thank you. I'm one of Evelyn's nephews, and it's a privilege to be able to speak to you today about Evelyn. There are many people in our lives that we can't imagine being without, but we have to, because that's the reality of life. Evelyn was one of 8, and now there's 1 left, and it makes us appreciate our family so much more because we've lost so much, but we can also appreciate her life. When I talked to Aunt Dorothy, the one thing she said to me that I want to say, that, and Judy said it so well, is I can't imagine the world without Evelyn. We all know her as being a softie. I think I'm the last living worker from Modern Draperies. And I can tell you, that lady was tough as nails. She would run around that shop, and if the seam wasn't straight, and if the rod was made 1 inch longer, Jeff, right? Or if the job didn't get done on time, and many other things that went wrong, she was there and kept that shop going while Uncle Charlie was out selling the heck out of draperies, which he did. To us, when our family got together, she was just Aunt Evie. It seems also like she was also everybody's mom. My mom died many years ago, and it didn't matter whether her sisters were here or not. Cousin Danny's here. His mom died in 1965. Evie was just special. Didn't mean she couldn't walk in your house and take her finger and go, oh. So she kept you on her toes, but she loved. She loved us all, and we all stayed close to her. I remember almost 60 years ago, going to Midway Airport with Jeff and Marlene and Evie and putting her on a plane to come to California. We thought we'd never see her again. I mean, it was so far away. And she came out here with really nothing, left her family because she thought it was where she wanted to be and what she wanted to do. And it was not easy. We came to see her, and I remember my mom crying just because she had a beautiful house in Chicago that she sold and gave up so much to be here. but what she built is incredible. The friends she had, she outlived many of them, and all the work she did for B'nai B'rith, the City of Hope, diabetes, and on and on. Today, we always talk about mothers who are super mothers that do everything. In the 60s, it wasn't done that way. She ran a business with 50 or 60 employees at one time. She was the president of these organizations. She was a mother. Her house was perfect. She raised 2 kids. She kept Charlie in line most of the time, and still did all that when it wasn't expected. And she did it great. And she showed other people. I think our whole family saw that, and she was an example for us, not by telling us, but by showing us this is the way it is. She never complained, never heard her complain about anything. And when we were there, in 1960, when she was just building everything up, everybody was worried, and she just kept going and kept going and going. And what she's left is a great legacy to us and our family. There's a saying in the Jewish religion, and there's a word, and it's called mensch. And it's from German, it means man. But I think Evelyn proved that it's not a gender-biased word. Mensch is a way of life. It's a commitment. And I think she taught us all, as our parents did and our aunts and uncles did, why you want to be a mensch and what it means to do that. We miss her encouragement, and we miss her caring and her amazing candor. When you screwed up, Jeff, Marlene, she was not afraid to tell you. Even if you weren't related to her, she wasn't afraid to tell you. Even if you were in Chicago, 2,000 miles away, she was not afraid to tell you. But the other thing that she had, and all of the Kaplan sisters had, is just an amazing positive outlook. They never looked at the glass as being half empty. It was always half full. And they always defended fiercely their family, their children, not so much their employees, but I was both, so I saw both sides of it. If she were here today, and I believe she is, she'd be more worried about us than we worry about where she is, because she's in a good place. So it's gonna be hard to go home and know the next time we come back to California we won't see her, but we'll always have her memory. And Evelyn, you did good. Thank you.
We have a wonderful retrospective on her life that Michelle will share with us.